somebody read them out, which is what the original sort of fix everything plan was. So we're really lucky tonight to have Amber Griffin here to talk to us about the images in PI number 3 portrait. Over to you, Amber.
Oh, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I appreciate that. Can I just confirm that you guys can hear me okay?
Yes, yeah, you can. And I've got a microphone, Amber, so I'm the only one you can hear at the moment. So
very good. Okay, I can see a section of the room there. Thank you very much for all coming along this evening, and I'm sorry I can't be there in person. I just wanted to preempt before we get into speaking about the comments of the awarded work tonight, I just wanted to give you all the opportunity as I am going through and speaking to the images that you'll see up on your screen. If anybody has got any questions or sort of further comments or if I haven't been particularly clear on anything, I absolutely welcome you to interrupt me and ask me further questions about an image as we go along. So please do feel free to do that. For me, it's really important that this is a learning experience for everybody. So I would just love for you to get as much out of it as possible. So please do interrupt me if you'd like to.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt now to tell them how to interrupt. The only way to interrupt is through the microphone which I'm holding. So wave your hand at me and I'll bring the microphone over and then you'll be able to talk and Amber will be able to hear you.
Sounds good. Okay, so as far as I'm aware, we're going to just speak to the sort of the images that have been scored a 3 and above. Are you going to be presenting certificates at the same time, or does that happen at a different time?
That happens at the end. What we'd actually like you to do is to talk about the images from all of them. So start at the ones with the critiques that you had there. If that's and so this is where the confusion's obviously happened, and this is
well, I didn't print those ones out, but let me just quickly find where I have saved them.
So what John would have been talking about, and this is completely understand now where the confusion came about, is there's a presentation of certificates which is 3 and above, and there's presentation of the whole competition. So using the same word has caused confusion. We'd actually like a critique on everybody's image, and we will, after you've finished doing that, we'll give out certificates for those who got awarded.
Okay, that is awesome. I am absolutely able to do that. I just don't have the 1s and 2s. I might not have them quite in the right order, so I might take a little bit longer than anticipated to find them, but just give me a moment and I will find where I've put those.
Can you see the screen? Can you see our screen that says open projected images number 3?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so if we stick the images up in the order, then you can search for them and go from there.
Then I can find the right ones, yes.
Sweet, okay.
That's awesome. Sorry, I had minimized all of those. Right, and now I can see them again.
Here comes the first one.
Okay, awesome. Okay, right, let me find that on my spreadsheet. So this, I think, is an incredible choice of subject with so much potential. But unfortunately, some of the choices here have not resulted in that full potential of your subject to being realised. The image is quite overexposed and there are parts of your subject's headpiece that have been blurred around the back there in a little bit of an unnatural way. I think possibly that may have happened from a sort of like a background selection in Lightroom or something like that, where it's just not quite selected those parts of the headpiece properly. There's also no connection between the photographer and the subject, which causes this portrait to lack some engagement. Also, just take care when composing your images to always avoid a horizontal line, like the line of that horizon or hill in the background, intersecting with your subject's head, if at all possible. a lowered angle of view from the photographer would have fixed the horizon line issue in this situation.
Oh.
Okay, any questions on that?
Okay, here comes the next one.
Great.
Coffee time.
Okay, this image is close to being technically proficient, but it does lack the finesse and control of an awards-worthy capture. When photographing a portrait, it's essential to carefully consider the way in which the background elements interact with and distract from your subject. Also, the viewer's eye is always drawn to the brightest part of an image first, and in this case, that is the large white umbrella that's in the background there. It's very dominant in this image, and I think that it is far too distracting from your subject for this to be a successful portrait. Okay. This subject has a lovely, calm expression, but unfortunately, the harsh overhead lighting is not particularly flattering to your subject's features by causing some hard shadows and several hot spots on her face. The crop of this portrait also makes the composition very left dominant, and the crop feels quite awkward where her head touches the edges of the frame. There's also some quite obvious cloning marks around the edges of your subject's hair, which are a bit distracting to the eye. Okay. The close-up crop of this portrait is effective. However, it does also act to emphasize a few of the retouching flaws within this portrait. The shadow of the nostril appears to have been cloned over or lightened somehow, which is quite distracting. And I think that this image would also be a lot more captivating if the subject's eye was looking directly at the camera. The bright earring that's catching the light beneath that tulle fabric is also quite distracting, and I don't think it serves to add anything meaningful to this image. Also, just take care with your choice of lighting for an image, particularly when it's this close up. The light across her cheek feels a little bit patchy and confusing, and it's overly brightful in a few areas that are not particularly flattering for your subject. Okay. This is a gorgeous, vibrant subject with plenty of personality and character. Unfortunately, the subject's skin has been quite overexposed and it's particularly bright and muddy down that front straight arm. There's also a little bit of an unusual sort of smoothing halo effect on that same arm and on quite a lot of her skin that just feels a little unnatural. This image would really benefit from some subtle dodging and burning and a soft vignette to draw the viewer's eye back up into your subject's beautiful face. The location and the placement of your subject within the frame of this doorway all works particularly well. There's just a few post-production tweaks that would really elevate this image up into the awards level. What a gorgeous subject. Unfortunately, there are just a few strange healing cloning marks on the left-hand side of the background of this image that are very distracting from your otherwise gorgeous subject. The image is well exposed and your focus is spot on. Perhaps just consider a backdrop that is more tonally in keeping with the warm colours of your subject's hair and outfit, but otherwise a lovely image. Okay. Another gorgeous subject with so much potential. Just take care to be very intentional with your lighting choice when you are photographing people. The bright light on your subject's nose is not the most flattering option that's available here. Also, consider your crop carefully and try to never crop through part of a subject's hands. The hands should either be fully included or not at all. The closed eyes of your subject in this image feels a little bit of a confusing choice, and it's not quite clear why you've chosen to do this. Try to be more intentional with every decision that you make with a portrait like this, and always ensure that you encourage your young subjects to feel completely comfortable with your communication towards them, as this will always translate in your finished images.
Amber, could you comment a bit more on the hands in or hands out thing?
Yeah, sure. Hands are a particularly difficult part of portraiture, I think. When they are done right, they can be amazing and add so much to your images. But when they're not kind of posed in a flattering way, they can really let an image down. And I think the problem with this particular one is not so much the posing, as she's obviously holding that ice block, I think it is. It's really more the fact that it has been cropped off partway through the hand. It's just kind of I don't know if it's an unwritten rule of portraiture, but I think if you are going to include hands in an image, you would always try to have the full hand included, or just not have it included at all, but chopping something off either sort of right on the wrist or across part of the hand it just is an uncomfortable composition choice. Does that help?
That's cool, thanks.
Okay. Right, sorry, let me just find this one. Ah, yes. Okay. So the backlighting in this portrait works really well to highlight your subject's beautiful hair colour, and the overall tonal quality within the image feels quite cohesive. However, the subject's body language here makes them look quite uncomfortable with their shoulders sort of hunched and rolled forward, and with their expression. Although it's connected to the camera, it feels just quite blank. The camera's point of view is also sort of hovering just above your subject's eye level, and this further serves to diminish your subject in a way by giving the feeling of looking down on them. The busyness, of the background in this image could have been mitigated a bit more by selecting a longer lens and therefore being a little more out of focus to really bring the focus of the image into your subject. The background would also feel more connected to your subject if that same lovely backlight was able to fall on all of those natural grass elements in the background. They just look like that they are in shade in this image, and I think it would connect the whole image together much more if they were all within the same lighting. Your subject also has a really beautiful smattering of freckles across their skin, which would have been such a lovely element to accentuate with your treatment of the skin. So I'm quite a firm believer in keeping the skin as natural as possible, and rather than flattening or healing things like that out, if you can really lean into the beauty of freckles, I think they can really help to elevate a portrait.
Another question from me. I can really see what you're talking about with that angle of the fact that the photographer is slightly high. Can you give some observations about how you go about getting, when you're doing a photo shoot like this, do you crouch down? Do you use the viewfinder in kind of flipped out mode? What do you practically do in this situation?
So I still use an SLR camera. With my dance stuff, I have just not been able to cope with the mirrorless yet. So I don't use a flip out screen at all. I only ever look through the viewfinder. And absolutely, I would crouch down. I would do kind of anything to get at the right angle in something like this. Something that I've been doing a bit of dog photography recently as well, and I think that it is particularly crucial with photography of animals to get kind of right down to their eye level, or quite often even lower than that. So when you are photographing either people or animals or anything like this, particularly children, I think, as well, like because they're obviously, as adults, we're all quite used to seeing children from a higher viewpoint, and it's such a different image once you get down to exactly their eye line or slightly below. If you are looking down on the subject, it really gives that more of a diminishing vibe to the portrait. But if you are slightly looking up at the subject from a lower point of view, it really elevates and gives your subject sort of a bit more of a sense of power. So those things, even though they seem really minor, I think that they are actually really, really crucial to the success of a portrait.
Awesome answer, thank you.
Okay. So there's a really obvious warmth and connection between these two subjects, and they both appear really comfortable within this situation and with each other, which is really lovely to see. This portrait is just let down by the tight cropping and some quite distracting elements of the image that intersect with the frame, the crop of the frame. For example, the bright highlight at the bottom and the small portion of the top subject's arm that's been cropped off. The reflection in the glasses of your subject at the top there is also really distracting and just lacks a little bit of polish for a portrait. Although both of the faces of your subject are in shade, the bright sunlight highlights of the hard sun that's on their arms and hands tends to draw the eye away from their faces in this image, which just makes for a little bit of an overall confusing composition. As I mentioned in an image earlier, the viewer's eye tends to always go initially to the lightest and brightest part of an image, and when that lightest and brightest part is not a part of the image that you really want your viewer to be focusing on, that can just cause quite a conflict of where the viewer should be sort of paying their attention. Okay. This, to me, feels like a really solid documentary portrait that appears to accurately depict the moment of this child in the swimming pool. In order for this to be elevated to the awards level, your image just needs to be a little less predictable and to bring something a bit more unique and unexpected. So perhaps a lower point of view would work well here, something that explores depth of field, or something maybe that captures the movement in the water or the reflection of the water. There are so many really more interesting possibilities and less obvious choices in a location like this if you just sometimes slow down a little bit and really try to seek out some more interesting and less obvious options. Okay. Now the framing of this image
can I
is
interrupt
really
here with a bit of a hint, Amber? This is our patron, so Diana's kind of sitting here watching the critique of her. It's a bit unfair, but that's what's happening.
Oh, right. Okay. Hi, Diana. The framing of your image is really unique and lovely, and good on you for trying something so innovative. I think that in order to elevate an image like this, you just need to lean into this innovative concept a little more and just try to push it a bit further. The crop doesn't quite work for this image as it is, but perhaps if you cropped maybe the top third of this image out and it was sort of into more of a square shape, then this might make a little bit more sense. Also, the image, the quality of the image is just a bit noisy, so make sure that you're using the appropriate settings on your camera, and you don't have to have your ISO unnecessarily high in low light situations like this. And also just try to consider the quality of light that you're using to light a subject when you're making a portrait. Generally, interior downlights are not the most flattering option. So possibly next time you could try using, say, the diffused light the sunlight that might be coming through a window, or something that's not a full downlight. And lastly, just when you're using mirrors in photography, always try to ensure that they are perfectly clean before you start, so that you don't have to worry about doing healing and of dust spots and things that pop up on the mirrors. Okay. Where's this lady gone? Here we go. Lovely subject with a very professional choice of focus and depth of field in the background. The angle of your subject's head just feels a little bit awkward, and the expression on her face makes her seem just slightly uncomfortable. But a great attempt at balancing out the shadows with the use of a reflector down below. Unfortunately, this has also just created quite a dominant and very large catch light in your subject's eye. So if you were to still use that reflector, but just move it a little further away from your subject's face, then it would help to minimize this large catch light, and it would look a little more natural. And it would also just allow some of the shadow and shape and structure within the skin to be in there, but still be a little bit filled by the reflected light, so that her face doesn't just feel quite so flat. Also, just take care with how much skin smoothing that you apply to your subjects, because this lady's skin feels overly smooth, which I just always think that keeping things as natural as possible is preferable when you can. Okay. This is a very unique high contrast capture with an incredible subject. The subject has just got so much potential here, but the real power of this image has just unfortunately been let down by the overexposure of your subject's face and hand. With a predominantly low-key image like this, it's really quite crucial to expose the highlight areas correctly, and they're unfortunately just quite blown out here, and we're losing a lot of the beautiful detail that would be available in her skin. Now, the lack of information that's in the black background areas of this image, I don't think that's an issue at all. I love the high contrast in here. However, they don't really add enough to this portrait to warrant quite so much space, so I think that a slightly tighter crop would really serve this image well. As would being able to see a bit more detail in your subject's hair, so that that doesn't blend totally into the backdrop. It would just really help to elevate this image to its full potential. Just as an aside, I felt that all of the elements of this image were actually really awards worthy, and I think that if this had been treated a little differently with the post-production, then it would certainly be able to be an awarded image.
So do you think there's enough detail in the places like the hair and the bottom of the arm to bring things back?
I actually don't know that until I see the raw file. But this is one of the images that if you guys are keen to do a sort of post-production finishing workshop, I would love to take this raw file and see what we can actually pull out of it, because I feel like this image has got so much potential. It's a really wonderful capture, and I think that if that information is there, then it would be amazing to be able to find it. Okay. What a cute little bottom. The composition and the crop of this image works really well. However, the image is let down a wee bit by the harsh lighting and the general underexposure. The highlights within the image are feel a bit crushed here, which creates overall a wee bit of a flat feeling to the tonal range within the image. And in addition, when you've got a sensitive subject like this, the image would feel less voyeuristic and be sort of slightly elevated and have a little bit more of an artistic vibe to it if it was presented as a black and white monochromatic image. So I think that might be worth doing here, because there's a lot of great compositional elements all going on. But I feel like this would be more appropriate to present as a monochromatic.
I got the sense from the giggles I heard that you probably can't hear that the people here thought the bottom was overexposed rather than an under.
Oh, really? Gosh, okay. Well, well, I mean, on
Too
my
exposed.
screen, this one, yeah, it feels under.
I'm not talking about photographically.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yes. Well, I have two young boys, 6 and 8. So this is a very common occurrence to, well, not maybe not on a tire, but certainly just outside anywhere on the farm. Okay. This image here is another one that I would really love to be able to see the raw file of, and I just think that the subject has got so much potential. The portrait is so very nearly there, but it's just let down by a few crucial elements. So the subject's pose and expression actually just work perfectly to illustrate his character. However, the crop just feels a wee bit off to me. There is just a bit too much space up the top above his hat, and the inclusion of the Ridgeline logo in the bottom right-hand corner of the frame just keeps drawing the eye away from your subject and down to that logo, and it's not really adding anything to the portrait. I think it would be better off to either be healed out or just cropped out. The bottom left side of your subject's beard is the brightest part of this image, which also keeps drawing the eye. So that really competes for prominence with your subject's eyes. And the soft lighting on your subject's face certainly does work well, although I feel like this could afford to be a little bit harder, the light quality, to really accentuate his features. But an effective dodge and burn would do wonders for this portrait, and I think that you could really bring out even much more of his character just through some careful dodging and burning. Okay. All right, this must be one of the last ones, is it? Of the 2s? I think so. Okay, your subject looks a wee bit uncomfortable in this image, which is sort of communicated through his body language and his slightly tense expression. While the image is exposed well for the shade light that's falling on your subject, the background is just really quite overexposed. And this leads to the light on your subject feeling quite flat and a little bit murky. There's also something a wee bit weird going on with the black bar that's underneath your subject's elbow on the right side of the image. Perhaps a little bit of a cloning thing's happened there. So just try photographing your subject maybe again at a different time of the day when the light is lower, either close to sunrise or sunset, as this will generally provide you with a much more flattering and interesting lighting situation for a subject that's out on the water like this.
This is a score 3, so this is the first of the acceptance.
Okay, so we've moved into the awarded images now. Awesome. All right, this one is an excellent decisive moment capture. Your image is well exposed and perfectly focused. The vignette on this image does feel quite strong, so it's just a little bit heavy and therefore slightly distracting, but otherwise everything else is just really quite lovely. Well done. Okay, what a fabulous character. This is well captured documentary style portrait that seems to depict this moment really effectively. It is a wee bit of a shame that the composition has been cropped so tightly to the top of your subject's wild hair, as this makes the overall composition just feel slightly top heavy and unbalanced. But your use of depth of field and the tonal range is all really spot on. In order to elevate this portrait, a little more breathing room at the top would be great, and perhaps a soft vignette would serve to bring the viewer's full attention into your subject's face. Okay, this is a very well composed classic composition, making for a relaxed portrait. Your subject appears to be very comfortable and at ease within his environment and the situation, so well done. To elevate this image, it would be really great to see a little more light on your subject's face, and in particular in those eyes. Also, healing the little white spots on your subject's clothing would help to eliminate those distractions and just give the image a little more polish. But this image would also greatly benefit from some subtle dodging and burning, and perhaps also just a little more contrast. Okay, this is a very well captured and well cropped image with a particularly engaging subject. The white balance of your image does feel a little bit too yellow, and the skin tones of the subject appears to be overly warm and saturated. Perhaps the result of adding maybe too much contrast. However, the skin texture and clarity are all really well handled here. To elevate this image, you need to just tone down the oversaturated skin tones a little and perhaps apply a bit of dodging and burning to make all of those tones within the portrait work cohesively. In particular, the bright white collar on the left-hand side of the image is just too bright and it keeps drawing the eye down away from his face. A wonderfully descriptive moment with a unique subject and narrative. There's a lot of background elements in this image that are perhaps not necessary for the overall story of the image, which would be elevated if those elements had been further out of focus or maybe cropped out a little more. With a subject like this, you could also really lean into their facial details and their expression to give you maximum impact. Okay, a lovely simple capture that is well exposed and cropped. The directional light shows off the bird's feathers well along the right-hand side of the image, but there is still detail on the darker left-hand feathers. It's a great use of depth of field and the appropriate focus used here. To elevate an image like this, it would be great to see you attempt perhaps an action or movement shot with the same subject. A well-composed classic upper body crop for this environmental portrait with a well-balanced exposure between the subject and background. Your subject certainly appears relaxed and happy, and her expression is evident despite the eye mask that's covering a large amount of her face. To elevate an image like this, you could strive to shoot at a different time of the day when the light is a lot lower in order to achieve more drama and intrigue. Overall, though, this is a well-executed portrait. Well done. This technically very well executed portrait with a well-styled subject. You have lit your subject appropriately, and all the tones within this image work really well together. I particularly like your slightly lowered point of view here, which serves to elevate your subject's status. To further elevate this portrait, I would like to have seen her moved closer in towards the trees in the background so that the green colour filled the entire frame rather than all of that grey sky. But otherwise, a very well done portrait. Okay, gorgeous golden light tones of the sunlight in this image bring a lovely warmth to the child's skin tone. Your focus on his eye is spot on, and the angle of his face towards the light gives a lovely fall off of light across his cheek. The close crop works very well here, and the details of the light glistening on his beautiful lips and youthful hair add a touch of magic to this image. To further elevate this portrait, your angle of view would be better slightly lower so that you're either directly at or slightly below his eye line. This might have allowed the catchlight to be visible in his eyes, which would have added further magic to this image. But overall, a really lovely, natural and well executed image. Well done. Okay, what an intriguing and creative portrait this is. There are a lot of good things going on individually within this image. However, the combination of them all together is slightly confusing, which makes the narrative for me a little bit unclear. Your subject has such a wonderfully intense gaze. However, because her eyes are below the center line of the overall composition, the impact of these eyes is diminished a little, and the brightness of her forehead becomes the most prominent part of this image. The floral overlay around the majority of your composition, I think, would be more effective if the image that was used here was less sharp. When an overlay is used in this way, it tends to feel more disjointed from the subject rather than being a well-considered component of the overall composite. So I think if you had been able to use an image of those flowers that was just less in focus, then it wouldn't have been such a dominant component of the image, and it would have just blended in with everything else a little more. Okay, a wonderfully stoic looking character with his windswept beard. I particularly love the way that your subject's beard follows the curve of his hood here. With an image like this that contains such strong graphic shapes, you can afford to lean into that strength and crop in closer to emphasize it. So crop especially from the bottom and the left-hand side. This image would also very much benefit from some dodging and burning to really bring out your subject's wonderful features and the textures within his skin and beard. This is another one that I would really love to see the raw file of and have a play and see what magic we can bring out of it. Okay, such a unique and well-captured portrait. Your focus is in the right place and your composition works really well. To further elevate your image, you could try backlighting your subject here. This would serve to increase the overall drama of the image and make for much more interesting shapes within her facial structure. Also, just take care when using makeup that it is always complementary to your subject and not becoming a distracting element. There's some clumpy mascara going on with this girl's beautiful eyes, which is just a wee bit distracting. Okay, this well-exposed portrait exudes energy, and the tight crop with the busy frame edges gives us a real sense of chaos. The colour and vibrancy within this portrait further serves to strengthen this overall vibe. However, the image is let down a little by the lack of light in your subject's eyes. A small catchlight in their eyes would have really brought out your subject's expression to life and would have made this a more engaging portrait. What an impressive... Oh, hello. Sorry,
Yes,
was that
yeah.
somebody
No,
asking something?
no, you're still there. Keep going.
What an impressive level of focus and detail on your subject in this image. Very well captured. To elevate this image, it would be great to have shot and cropped this in a way that enhances the symmetry of your subject rather than the head being slightly tilted. But overall, this is a really stunning capture. Well done. A strong and professionally captured character portrait. The blocks of bold colour here all work together well, and the leading lines throughout draw the viewer's eye onto your subject effectively. Your subject is exceptionally well styled and appears confident and comfortable. Well done. Can you guys see the scores?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Yes, you can. Okay, cool. All right, a gorgeous, quiet portrait. Well exposed and your focus is spot on. The overhead lighting does create a few unflattering shadows under your subject's half-closed eyes, and this lighting also serves to accentuate their smile lines. So just take care with your crop, as the way the image is cropped through your subject's neck just feels slightly awkward. I think that if her head had been moved up just a little more within the frame, then that would be a more successful overall composition. But it's a really interesting natural portrait. Well done. Okay. A gorgeous, decisive moment capture. Your subject portrays a wonderful sense of energy and fun, a great angle of view. This image could be improved by being a little more decisive with your time of day. Perhaps a low light backlit scenario would really help to elevate the drama in an image like this. But it's a great capture. Well done. A particularly striking subject with a well-balanced tonal range. Your exposure is spot on, and the framing of your subject's face within the overall composition works really well. The clarity of the texture in your subject's skin and beard contrasts perfectly against the dropped-out focus that's directly behind him. The gaze of your subject encourages the viewer to ask questions about what it is that he's looking at. Where is he going? I do find the very contrasting texture of this man's shirt a little too contemporary for the strong vintage vibe that the rest of the image has. But aside from that, this is a very well executed and great portrait. Well done. A wonderful capture in what can often be very tricky lighting conditions. The expressions tell a fabulous story and your composition is very well balanced. Just take care in low light situations like this not to completely overexpose your image. Sometimes it's okay to allow the shadows to be truly black, as this allows the viewer's eyes to solely focus wholly on your wonderful subjects. Such a unique and compelling portrait. I really love how you've captured your subject with one eye visible and the other hidden. Your tones and exposure are very well balanced. Just take care when selecting your crop to be fully intentional if you choose to crop the top of somebody's head. Also, just pay attention to your eye level in relation to your subject. I feel that you are just slightly too high in this image. It's a very gorgeous portrait. Well done. Okay. This is a particularly gorgeous and compelling portrait. The soft light quality complements her expression and simple pose just absolutely beautifully. Your control with the movement of her hair is magnificent, and it sits perfectly on the out of focus background. Just take care not to overwork or over sharpen the eyes. And I was really wondering about the texture of the skin in this portrait as well. It was quite tricky for me to tell from the resolution of the image that I had, but some parts of it just felt overly smoothed. I think this is a really gorgeous portrait, and I really battled with this one. Between this one and the image who won first place. They were very close, but it was just those couple of things in the end between the eyes and the treatment on the skin that held this slightly down for me. Okay, what a fabulously creative portrait this is. Your choice of headpiece styling works very well with the colours in the rest of the image, and the substrate that you have shot through here creates a wonderful and interesting texture throughout. The high fashion vibe of your subject's headpiece is let down a little by the rest of her styling. Also, one way to avoid the distortion of facial features in an image like this would be to guide your subject to perhaps look away from the camera and instruct them into maybe a more fashion-forward sort of a pose to allow the foreground texture to completely complement every part of your subject so that you don't get that distortion in her eyes and lips. But overall, it's a wonderfully creative image, so well done. Okay, and the overall winner. This is a particularly stunning image. The light on your subject is handled just beautifully, as is the appropriate use of depth of field. The fall off of light towards the lower half of the image keeps the eye traveling back up into your subject's intriguing face. The weathered texture of his skin is perfectly exposed, and the tonal range is treated with the utmost of care here. This is a very engaging, inviting, and gorgeous portrait. Well done.
That was fantastic, Amber. Thank you very much for that. They turn the lights on here, and I'm just going to see if I can encourage somebody. If has anybody got any questions about anything there that we could? Well, she's here. Amber's here at the moment. She's about to go and have a glass of wine or a cup of tea. No, they're all dumbfounded by your superb words. Thank you very much for that. To compare the other possibility, which was just to read out those words with somebody else, that was chalk and cheese. And to have you spend your evening with us tonight, we really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much. It's made a huge difference, and that was a really, really enjoyable judging. Thank you. Thank you again. Now, please go and have a...
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for entrusting me with judging your images. It was a real pleasure, and congratulations to everybody who has had their images awarded.
And having seen the images and the way you talked about them, know from the ones that you indicated you'd want to talk about, I can see exactly what you're getting at, and we'll really work hard to get you back for a dodge and burn portrait photography processing thing sometime soon.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right. See you later.
Can I talk that way? Okay, the first one is Reward by JK. Next we have The Busker's Serenade by Pip Hours. Then we have A Photographer by Nerily Keating. And next we have It's All About the Light, Alistair Phillips. And the final touches, The Buskers Festival, was Raywin Wright. Then we have the New Zealand Falcon Ariara, Bonnie Steskamp. Next we have The Ski Bunny by Toby Myers. And Annie by Janine Money. And here we have The Handsome Boy by Lucy Ferguson. Now we have The Hiding Amongst the Hydrangeas by Jan Bogue. My turn this time. Portrait of George by Diana Andrews. Then we have Breaking Free by Jane Barnes. Then we have The Happy Percussionist by Anthony York. And Face of the Blowfly by Alan Moore. High acceptance, I've missed that. We're in the high acceptances now with Alan's. The next one is The Ring King by Ron Willems. And next one is The Tropical Rain by John Hunt. And then we have Let It Fly Like the Wind by Hee-Ching Kim. And DIY Repiling Completed by Shirley Wilson. And that's an honours, by the way. The next one is Portrait Putting on a Face by Richard Cooper. And then we have The Customs Champion or Caged, Karen Dance. And we have a monochrome portrait, The Girl by Anna Stevens. And the next one is Sweetheart by Dawn Kirk. And the Best in Show and Honours ribbon goes The Fishman Villager by Desmond Nah. Oh, not here. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, guys, and congratulations to all the winners tonight. I'm just going to close this evening just to say thank you for taking part in the threes. They're going out and telling a story. Those images can go up onto the webpage as a showcase, which will be showing, I think, around the 26th. It's up on the information. Is there anybody or anything else that anybody wants to talk to? Yes, just a quick. Yep. Okay. Next week we will be showing the fingers crossed. Okay.
Okay, so next week, fingers crossed, John will be well by now and suitably dosed up with antibiotics and ready to go. He's really keen. So make sure we get lots of people here for that. What I wanted to talk about was a bit of a heads up to everybody about kind of what happened at the convention. We have been nicely shoulder tapped to have another look at running a convention in Christchurch. My initial reaction was to run 100 miles an hour as fast as I could in the other direction. But when I had a look at it, it mightn't be a bad position to sort of, rinse and repeat effectively. So I've been talking to St Margaret's College. But what actually happened at the convention was I was asked that, and I put the feelers out amongst the dozen or so people who were there at the convention from CPS. And during the dinner, there was a table chock full of CPS members, and I was in a different one with Ron, and there was a couple of other people in different places. And this table of 10 people, during the meeting, during the whole dinner, might have been wine-induced, I'm not really sure, but they basically started planning the convention that we're talking about. So I think we're pretty much committed. Thank you, Jane. So basically it's a warning to everybody here. I'm quite happy for us to go ahead and do it. It worked really well last time, but a warning is it takes a lot of work, and we have to be all ready to stand up and say, yes, keen, let's run with it. I think there's lots to be gained out of it, but we'll be asking everybody to, step forward and come up with some ideas and do some things in the next couple of years. Probably we're talking about 2 years away now. It'll probably be the end of April. Anzac weekend, most likely, by talking to St Margaret's, would be something that'll work. So you are pre-warned. Yeah, the honours. What I'm going to probably try and do, because the order of things this month was going to be that John was going to do his presentation tonight, and then next week on the 7 o'clock session, he was going to do a 7 o'clock session with a practical exercise. You can't do the practical exercise and the talk in one go, so I'm going to probably bring forward from the week after that, which was the honours showcase, to next week. So that'll be the 7 o'clock session. We'll get everybody who achieved an honours award this year, which is heaps. With how many? With 6? Was it 7? Yeah. So that's really good effort from CPS. We'll look at each of the pictures, each of the sets. We've also got, basically there'll be half a dozen plus or minus sets to have a look at. The idea is that we'll present them. Or get the person whose set it is to talk a little bit about it. They won't all be here, unfortunately, Heidi, but can you leave us a note or two, or maybe something? Sweet, okay. And then I will give a honours board perspective on what we saw and what we're looking for. So this is a really cool way to kind of move forward. Shortly thereafter, we're going to be announcing a Get Your Honours special interest group and a whole bunch of collective ways to do it. So given the fact that we got half a dozen this year, I think there's another dozen potentials out in the audience for the year after, and if we just pick it up and keep going, I really want to encourage that.
Thanks, Ian. Yes, I was up there for the first time, and I just feel like I've stepped on the very first rung of the ladder. You come away thinking, holy moly, there's so much more to do. But you get really, really excited, and you get quite a buzz seeing everybody else's work. And that you could tell today. I was excited when I was trying to get you to do 3 pictures. It's the start of many things. So it's really cool. So get your entries in and still work on your own individual pictures for the competitions, because that's great. If you've done really well in these competitions, then it'd be great to formulate something even bigger with your work and get a body of work out there. It's really cool. So we sort of have a think about those things. So we'll close. Safe journey home, and catch up with you all in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you. Please, a round of applause for all our guys who have been here doing all the sound and all the computer work, all the background work. So big round of applause, guys. Thank you. Cheers.